Hi, Beth Hanlon here. Today I'd like to show you how to do a watercolor resist painting. So let's get started. Okay, so you have your sheet of watercolor paper. You can use thinner paper, but it'll probably wrinkle up on you when it dries. So I would go ahead and use a thicker watercolor paper for this project, just because we're using watercolor specifically. All you're going to need to draw right now is a black or gray or some kind of a dark color crayon to outline our leaves, and you're just going to freehand leaves. Now if you're not comfortable drawing freehand, you could get some stencils online and download them and trace them out. You could even go out in your yard and pick out some leaves and trace those, however you want to do it. But I'm going to go ahead and freehand some and show you what that looks like. You can draw as many or as few leaves as you like. Just like with any of the projects I've shown you, this is your choice, your creation. There is no wrong way to do it. You can do different shapes than I've done. If you want to do a different kind of leaf, you are certainly welcome to do that as well. Just have fun with it. That's my only rule. And you know, leaves aren't perfect. If you go out in the yard and find some of them have a similar shape, of course, but no two are exactly the same. So if none of the two on your page are exactly the same, that's completely fine. Our next step, now that we have our leaves drawn, is going to be to get out the actual watercolors. So you want to make sure you have a brush. You can use the one that comes with your paint set. I chose to use a little bit thicker one. It's your preference. And don't forget your glass of water. You might want to also have a paper towel in hand, just in case you would have a little more water on your brush. You want to blot that off. But you do want to have a lot of water in your paints because you want it to be a little bit runny. You don't want it to be dry, and you can pick whatever colors you want. Because I'm going to do this with more of a fall theme, I'm going to stick with the fall colors, so like red and orange and yellow, maybe a little bit of brown. So up to you what you want to use. If you want to have purple leaves, have purple leaves. If you want blue leaves, make blue leaves. It's your picture. So at this point, go ahead and get your brush nice and wet, and then you're just going to start painting in your leaves whatever color you would like to make them. And you can mix colors too as you go through. You can make them a little bit lighter by adding more water, making them more runny. And then you could also add darker colors in and kind of mix them, because when the leaves start changing this time of year, you know, you can have a couple different colors on a particular leaf. They aren't necessarily all one color. So that's what we're working on here. Make them as you like them. I mentioned earlier you might want some brown. Don't have to, but that's a thought. But if you do use brown, I would use a little bit. It kind of goes a long way. You don't want it to kind of take over the rest of your colors. So however many leaves you have, you're going to go ahead and color them all in. Make them as dark or as light as you wish. And if you come outside, like I've done on this one, come outside the lines, that's okay. Not a problem at all. We're not going for perfect lines here. That's part of the fun of working with watercolors. You can be a little more sloppy with them if you want to. Okay, so I think I'm happy with where I'm at here. Now, I'm going to rinse my brush out good. And then we're going to go to the background color. I'm going to make my background a blue. But before I do that, I want to get water all over the background of my paper in between the leaves. So I took a quick break and changed out my paint water just because I don't want orange to be mixed in with my blue background. But once I did that, you're just going to make, and it's not going to have any color initially, you're just going to go ahead and put some water on your paper. And remember, we have watercolor paper here, so it should take a good amount of water. It might curl your paper a little bit. I know my sample one it did, and that's okay. That when it dries, it'll be okay. So you're just going to load up your paintbrush with water and kind of get it all over the background. And if you get, like I did here, with some of my orange that mixes in, that's okay. Okay, so I have all the water areas that I want to. Now I'm going to go ahead and start adding in my blue. And you notice I'm just kind of dabbing. I don't even have like strokes going on here. I just am putting water and paint together in blobs. And you could mix this part too if you wanted to add some darker colors, or you know, if you think about a sunset in the fall, sometimes it's very pink or very purple and reddish colored. It's up to you. You just want your leaves to stand out when you're done though. And the more water you have, the runnier your paint's going to be, and that's okay, because in a minute here, when we're done painting the background, I'm going to show you what we're going to do with that. And I like that this project, you don't have to be precise. You just kind of put it wherever it goes, and it'll play with it a little bit and kind of run and go different places that maybe you didn't originally start with. That's okay. I think it's kind of fun to do that sometimes. It's okay to stay in the lines and stuff that once in a while. It's fun to do this kind of stuff where you kind of just, wherever it goes, it goes. Okay. Get a few more wet spots in here. And then I'm just going to add a little more water to some of them. Okay. Now here's where we're going to let it run a little bit, where you might want your napkin or your paper towel. And you're just going to, and if it goes over the leaves, that's okay. If it gets on your fingers, no big deal. It will come off. It's watercolors. You just kind of drip it a little bit here and there. I see a spot I missed here. So I'm just going to add a little water so that the paint kind of runs into those spots. You'll have a little bit of time to work with it if you want to, because it's going to be wetter, of course. Okay, so once I've kind of let it do that, here's where the really interesting part comes in. You noticed in the supplies list, I said you needed table salt. What? Table salt in a painting? That's crazy. Hang on just a minute. I'm going to show you how we're going to use that. So I just brought my salt shaker out from my kitchen. You can either put it in your hand and do it like this and sprinkle, or you can just go across here, and while it's still wet, you're going to sprinkle salt on your painting. And however much you want, a little bit or a lot. But then you're going to give it a few minutes to dry, and you're going to notice that it changes how your paint looks. It kind of makes it a little different texture to it. So give it a few minutes to dry, and then come back and check it out. Now, as you're waiting for your painting to dry, don't forget to rinse out your brush. You don't want to leave any paint to dry in there. And it's also a good idea, since we use so much water, the paints are really wet still. It would be better if you just left your case open a little bit until they had a chance to dry, because otherwise it gets a little icky if you close them while it's still wet. So now is the time you want to go ahead and clean up your work area. If you did like I did and shook the salt out of the shaker, it kind of went all over the place, not just on my paper. So I took a minute and I've cleaned up my work area. And go ahead and do that while you're waiting for your picture to dry. Shouldn't take terribly long. If you wanted to speed it along, you could take a hairdryer and blow it dry a little bit faster. It's whichever you prefer to do. But when you're all done, your painting is going to have this nice texture to it. I don't know if you can see that real well on mine. But it not only makes your leaves have little stippling to them, but it also has like a three-dimensional texture to your painting. So once you're done and dry, don't forget to sign your painting if you want to. Maybe even go get a frame at the dollar store and hang it up and add it to your home decorations for this fall. So you can do this with any shape that you wanted to. If you wanted to do birds or flowers or just some random abstract shape, you could do that. You just use the same technique. You just draw a different picture and choose whatever colors you'd like to fill those in and have fun. And I hope you'll join me next time. Bye.